Hey there, I'm Ian Douglas. I'm the author of the website techinterview.guide, and I'm here to help people with career advancement and interview preparation. My live stream on Twitch covers topics such as company research, how to build resumes and cover letters, applying for the job, getting through interviews, and what to do during negotiations. I've coached thousands and thousands of people over the years to get jobs at the biggest tech companies in the industry, and I'm here to help you too. The following episode is taken from a longer live stream event and may contain interactions with other people in chat. Check out the end of the episode for more information. Let's get to it. The last resume that we're going to go through was submitted by someone who basically said, this resume is about 2 years old. I don't have my current job on there, but I'm not even looking for work. You just asked for resumes to do resume reviews on the stream. So I appreciate this person dropping this one in. Let's go through it a little bit. So engineer, software quality 3, about me, enthusiastic about the creativity and innovation of development. All right. So pretty strong opening statement here. Somewhere in West Virginia, give us a LinkedIn profile. This takes up a lot of space though. So I would, yeah. And then page 2 is also kind of using, or like it's reserving that space for something else. So I'd probably change that up. I would like to see the skills block up on page 1 as well. Seeking a development role where I can bring my excellent troubleshooting skills, diligence, and experience to support a client product. So one thing that I generally say on a resume is there shouldn't be an ask on your resume. The resume is, this is what I bring, not this is what I want. You want them to read this over as far as like, oh, cool, Ian can come do that here. Not, oh, this is what Ian wants from the company. And so I would be careful about wording that in a way that talks about what you bring to their team. You know, like if you know that these are qualities that their team cares about as you do your networking and your outreach and you talk to people at that company and you find out maybe their company values or something like that. Talk about their company values on your resume. These are qualities that I bring to a team. And they're like, hey, those happen to be our company qualities. Again, it shows relevance. It shows that you've done some homework and done some research into who they are and what they do and so on. All those kinds of things will really stand out. Getting into experience from here. Let me zoom in a little bit on this. So education and training, associates in computer science, all this stuff is fine. It's always a little weird to me to see like these fonts where they like drop the number down a little bit as opposed to having everything sort of on the same plane, but that's fine. It's the font choice. 2 years of classes. So this is a good way of saying like I started this program, but I didn't finish. You can say this is how much of it I took, or I finished so many course credits or something like that. I think that's fine. So they're immediately jumping in with their professional experience. But if I'm looking for, you know, but do they know this particular technology? I got to go all the way down here to the bottom to see like, oh yeah, they've actually done a particular kind of technology. So I'd be careful about that. It says that they've done SQL for 15 years, but the sum total of their actual database experience only adds up to 8 years. So what's missing on here? Did you use some other kind of database that you just didn't list? Or are you pulling my leg that you actually did 15 years of SQL? Or were you writing SQL for somebody else and you didn't actually work on the database? Like maybe you actually did more on the administration side and like building out the tables and schemas and things like that on these databases for this amount of time, but you actually wrote SQL, you know, for these other databases. But given the difference between Oracle and Sybase and MySQL, the actual SQL syntax that you write would be different enough that I would be curious, like, where did the other 7 years of SQL experience come from? Web development, 15 plus years, NUnit, 10 plus years, developing in C# and .NET with Visual Studio for 15 plus years. Has it really been around that long? Agile for 10. Customer service help desk for 6 and so on. Okay. So generally this stuff is fine. I would always take aspiring off of here. Aspiring author, I mean, if you're already writing a book, then that's one thing. Like currently writing a book about such and such technology or something. But to say like, oh yeah, someday I want to write a book. Like, yeah, someday I'd love to learn how to sail a boat. Like, why does that matter to me and my company? Like, if my company is like, oh yeah, we'd love to give people time to like go explore things like writing a book, then that could stand out if you know that that's an attribute that they really care about and that they really respect. Amateur woodworker, if our company doesn't do anything about woodworking, this has no value at all. So I probably wouldn't put this kind of stuff on a resume. Some people are a little bit divided on that. Like, they think, well, we want to know you're a well-rounded person, that you've got skills outside of technology and stuff like that. And I think that that's got merit to it. But I think that you can also end up just like distracting a little bit from, but you call yourself a programmer, but like how much time are you actually spending, doing these other things and so on and so on. And then, yeah, from an overall layout point of view, you got this big empty block here where up on the first page, you've got your contact info. So I might move this contact info under your name and just get rid of this gray block here completely. Leave the education and so on in that column if you want. But it does feel a little bit disjointed. Either that or put the skills up in this block or something, like find a way to break out those skills into like hard skills and soft skills or something, like use the difference in the gray and the white backgrounds or something like that to kind of offset that a little bit. When it comes to the work experience that you're laying out here, you're explaining what you did and the technologies that you did, but you don't really give me a sense of this is the impact that this had. Like, telling me what you did is good. Telling me why it mattered to that company is better. Because again, you kind of want to tease out the whole, like, I could come do that for you. You want me to think that while I'm reading through your resume of like, oh, cool, Ian could come do that here too. Like we talked on another resume about like, I increased efficiency by 10%. It's like, okay, well, tell me a little bit more about like how you did that 10%. But like that kind of stuff really stands out on a resume. If you can quantify, like, I wrote 500 unit tests and it decreased our production bug count by 326 bugs and increased our speed our application speed by 22% or something like that. And if you're curious, like how to get those types of benchmarks, you can run benchmarking tools and profiler tools and things like that to actually find out like how much you're speeding things up, or how are you identifying that this was slow and that it even needed to be improved and sped up. Like, how are you doing that? Again, those would be interesting things to dive into, especially for someone that's got a pretty big history in technology. I would want to hear a little bit more about the impact that you had and not just what you did at these jobs. Now they mentioned that they don't have their current workplace on here, and so their work experience at this job ended July 2020, which is fine. So yeah, seeing the technologies, and they're kind of calling them out in bold. So again, you're kind of drawing my eye to those things. So I would skim through this and go, okay, C#, Agile, more C#, SQL, JavaScript. Okay, let's keep going down here. I see ASP.NET. Okay, SQL again, XML. Like, you're kind of drawing my eye to these things that you're writing in bold, so I can quickly see like, oh, you've actually been doing C# for a long time, like all the way back to 2010. So mentally, I'm kind of adding up like, okay, it's about 12 years of professional experience in C#. Here, though, you're telling me you've done C# for 15 years. That doesn't add up. If you've been doing C# since January 2010, we're most of the way through 2022. So let's give you the benefit of the doubt and say all of 2010, all the way through all of 2022, that's 13 years. That's not 15 plus years. So where does that extra time come from? So just making sure that, those kinds of things add up. Like, you've been doing SQL for 15 years, but the database experience that you list is only 8 years. Doesn't add up. It's not a huge flag, but for some, they're like, this is weird. That might put you on a maybe pile. If you've got other skills on here that my company highly desires, then we'll probably overlook it, but it may come up in the interview of like, hey, you said that you've been doing this for 15 years. I only count 12, maybe 13 years. Like, where else were you doing some of this work? Or, you said 15 years of SQL, but only 8 years of actual database hands-on work. Like, where did you do that other 7 years of SQL? Were you doing some other like data analysis work or something like that? They may have other questions just to follow up on it. Overall, though, the layout is pretty good. 10-year job history continued. So 10-year job history, but again, you're telling me you've got way more experience than that, than the job. So I would be careful that if you're including your education as professional experience, I would say, nah, that doesn't count as professional experience. To me, as a hiring manager, professional experience is something you got paid for and not something that you went to a class for. If you worked on a project and somebody paid you for that project, or you did, you were employed full time and you got paid for that work, that is professional experience to me. And so I would be careful of like going through and actually calling out like where you actually did some of this work. Because you are giving me 10 years, like to July 2020 from January 2010, like that was a 10-year span, but it doesn't add up with some of the stuff that you're telling me down here. So I would find a way of like, where did you get that extra 5 years of .NET or extra 7 years of SQL and so on? Thanks for checking that out. I hope that you found it helpful. I always appreciate feedback, so please let me know what you think. I appreciate any subscriptions, so please tell your friends and colleagues about it as well. Check out the website techinterview.guide for more information about when I'm live streaming and all of my free content. Drop by a live stream anytime to ask questions or message me privately, whatever makes you most comfortable. See you next time.